Today we're talking about F.A. Hayek's The Road to Serfdom. He wrote this book back in the 1940s. I'm going to tell you why this book is very relevant today, especially in the wake of COVID. I'm John Henderson with the Conservative Book Society. Let's get to it. F.A. Hayek was a champion of liberty and true freedom like no other. I read this book, or reread it, I was familiar with it, but I reread this book during COVID because I knew that it contained some very relevant things in it. Back in the 1930s and the 1940s, when Hayek was doing most of his thinking, research on this book, he was concerned with the players during World War II, communism and fascism and socialism and all those isms back then. But today, those terms are different. Today, we are dealing with a whole different group of people. They call themselves progressives. They call themselves internationalists. They call themselves globalists. And in the green movement, collectivism is another term that is often used. Those folks are the same as the ones in the 1930s and the 1940s that seized control of Europe and required liberation from various other forces. There are 4 reasons why this book matters today. First, Hayek discusses the rise of totalitarianism. Totalitarianism occurred back then, the seizing of liberty from people and centralized control. It occurred back then and swept across, as we said, Europe. And now it is occurring again in the world. And it is these progressives, it is the collectivists and the internationalists, and they're using science and the green movement as a shield to try to say, hey, we know what's best for all of you. Just trust us and follow us. So he explains how totalitarianism works and how it rises in different places. And it's eerily similar to what's going on today. The second big point is how many countries use emergency powers to seize control. He addresses how this happened in Germany, that there's financial crisis, so Hitler is able to seize control. It happened also in Russia. We've seen it happen in China, though he doesn't address that specifically. But various different places throughout world history, totalitarianism takes a hold by claiming that there's some sort of emergency. Here in today's world, the emergency is COVID. We should be on watch so that the globalists don't seize control from each of us. The third big discussion point is Germany. He uses Germany as an example of what went wrong. Today's example is going to be Australia, but here's the thing that he tells us about Germany. Germany went from being one of the freest places in world history, where classical liberalism, the debate of ideas, was flourishing to a greater extent, very high literacy rates and all of it. And just like this, in one generation, over the course of about 70 years, Germany went from being one of the freest places in the history of the world to following Adolf Hitler and following the Nazis, fascism. The same thing happened in Italy and various other countries across Europe, but it was voluntarily turning away from freedom and giving the keys over to a dictator. And so the most relevant reasons why COVID in the 1930s, 1940s are similar, why Hayek is very relevant today, is because we have seen a tremendous loss in individual liberty. We have seen the rise of government control and bureaucrats around the globe trying to tell everybody that they know best what to do, and they've used science as a shield to this and perverted science, as happened in the 1930s and 1940s again. And then we have seen this great trick, the great trick of we will lead you to be free from your problems if only you follow me. That great trick, changing the terms freedom and liberty and turning them around to try to confuse people is a great trick that all authoritarian regimes do. Globally now, we have seen the decline of democracies and republic forms of governments around the globe in recent years. That was true before COVID, but since COVID, it's become even worse. It is up to us to heed the warnings of F.A. Hayek. In closing, F.A. Hayek says that the most important change which extensive government control produces is a psychological change, an alteration in the character of people. Even a strong tradition of political liberty is no safeguard. I'm John Henderson with the Conservative Book Society telling you you've got to read this book. Thanks for watching.